So about a month ago or so, I was asked if I would preach on what Martin Luther King Jr. Called the beloved community, which is really an amazing concept. And I was also asked more recently to talk about investing in what's important to us as the stewardship campaign for your church has begun. So this Sunday seemed like a great opportunity to combine those two sermons into those two themes into one sermon. But then a global pandemic happened. And I imagine there are so many feelings right now out there. Some of you may be feeling confused. Some of you may be struggling. Some of you may be worried or depressed. Some of you may be losing your livelihood over this. Some of you may be enjoying the time at home. Some not. Some of you may be worrying about having to go to work. Some of you may be buying up all the toilet paper. And some of you may be wondering, how much toilet paper does one person need? Some of you may be worrying about the state of our nation and its leadership. Some of you may be worried about elections being postponed or even canceled. Some of you may be worried about your own health or the health of loved ones. Some of you may be wondering how you can help the vulnerable and the marginalized, our seniors and our folks without homes and others as they navigate this challenge. And some of you may be thinking we're all making too much of a big deal out of this. Whatever you're thinking and feeling on this, we are impacted. This disease has altered our world. And as I prepared to write this sermon, not much was coming out about the theme of building the beloved community. It's a good topic for another day. But much was emerging regarding love in the time of coronavirus, with apologies to Gabrielle Garcia Marquez. Yesterday, as I was pondering what to say today while wrestling with my own grief and struggle over the coronavirus and much more, I asked myself, what would I need to hear today? And so I offer that, a revised theme in keeping with revising times. A story from my memory emerged as I considered this crisis. It kept coming up to me. And it was the true tale of a Buddhist monk who was serving the refugees of Cambodia following the genocide of the Khmer Rouge. And he wrote, "When we are willing to rest with trust on this earth, the great force of life will begin to move through us. I saw this force of life in the midst of tremendous desolation, in the dry and barren land of the Cambodian refugee camps. After the Cambodian Holocaust, only parts of families had survived, a mother and 3 children, an old uncle and 2 nephews, and each was given a little bamboo hut, in front of which was a little patch of land, perhaps no bigger than 1 square yard. After only a few months of camp life, next to most of the huts in their little squares of ground, people had planted gardens. They would have a squash plant with 2 or 3 small squash on it, or a bean plant, or some other vegetable. And every day, each refugee family would walk a mile and stand for half an hour in a long line at the pit well at the far end of the camp, and carry back a bucket of water for their plants. It was a beautiful, beautiful thing to see these gardens in the middle of this camp in the dry season when you could barely believe that anything would grow on such a hot and barren field. As these war-shattered families planted and watered their tiny gardens, they awakened the unstoppable force of life. So can we. No matter what inner difficulties or suffering we may experience in tending to the darkness with compassion we will discover the same unstoppable life force. Someone yesterday online wrote, "This is a time to plant gardens and raise chickens." I was struck by the simple generosity of that, an acknowledgement of our inner resourcefulness, our capacity to grow what we need, and also in a way a return to sharing as we have enough to offer others, an embrace of life, of abundance, of giving. A garden in a refugee camp is a reminder that life goes on, that death and loss are not all there is. There is a beauty that emerges. There is a joy that we can cultivate. I noticed my daffodils blooming yesterday. A beautiful, strong, yellow row of flower warming the edge of my home. And those little flowers warmed my spirit too. Just a gentle joy cresting over the winter as we move into spring. Connecting with the reminders of life, of growth, of abundance, of love, that seems essential now. It's a time for cultivating that unstoppable force of life, especially in the midst of disease. One of the reasons I struggled today with talking about the beloved community has been the call to stay apart from one another, to reduce physical contact, handshakes and hugs, to stay out of larger crowds over 50, to practice social distancing, to separate our chairs, to stay home, even the debate over whether to hold this service today. How do we create community when we can't be together? There's a video going around in Italy, from Italy, and as I imagine many of you know, Italy has been hit hard by this disease. 17,000 cases as of last count I was able to find. 1,266 deaths so far. 250 in one day, which has become the largest on any given day, deaths anywhere in the world up to this point. Crossing the international threshold now of 5,000 deaths all told. And the Italian people are engaging in strict quarantine protocols to prevent the spread of disease. But we're a social people. How do we stay connected when we must stay apart? The video from Rome shows people in their balconies singing to one another, connecting not with touch, but with voice. We must, of course, know that one way we love each other now, for a time, is keeping some physical distance. But we also must know that it's not the only way we love each other. We're being asked to be creative in how we love each other, to love each other in new or unexpected ways. My colleague Lynn Unger wrote this poem, Pandemic. What have you thought of it as the Jews consider the Sabbath the most sacred of times? Cease from travel, cease from buying and selling, give up just for now, or I'm trying to make the world different than it is. Sing, pray, touch only those to whom you commit your life. Center down. And when your body has become still, reach out with your heart. Know that we are connected in ways that are terrifying and beautiful. You would hardly deny it now. Know that our lives are in one another's hands. Surely that has come clear. Do not reach out your hands, reach out your heart. Reach out your words, reach out all the tendrils of compassion that move invisibly where we cannot touch. promise this world your love, for better or for worse, in sickness and in health, so long as we all shall live. Reach out your heart, reach out your words, reach out all the tendrils of compassion that move invisibly where we cannot touch. Another colleague, Sunshine Wolf, says, "This is not the first crisis we as a nation or world have met, and it will not be the last. Yet we have survived and we will continue to survive together. There is good news. The steps we can take to protect one another are simple. In this challenging time, I encourage you to stay away and stay connected. Stay away and stay connected." Sunshine encourages us to stay away from the germ and stay connected to yourself. Making a ritual, for example, of washing your hands. To stay away from people and stay connected in creative and fun ways. To stay away from information overwhelm and stay connected to a few reliable sources. This time offers us creative opportunities to stay away and stay connected. In our isolation of space and touch, how do we connect in other ways? How do we continue to affirm that connection is the root of it and the reason for it? This is a sad time when some walls become necessary. But how do we build new bridges? How do we stay away and stay connected? You all will need each other through this. Find ways to reach out, to support each other. Community in these times is more important than ever. Check on your most vulnerable folks, your seniors, those with risk conditions, your impoverished members of this congregation. This is a time when your investment in this congregational community needs to come forward. Rely on each other. Find ways to offer mutual aid to one another. Also connect with your neighbors in your neighborhood. As a simple and trite example, what would it mean to let people know you have toilet paper to share? A woman the other day came up to talk to me about the coronavirus and how my organization was handling it. As many of you know, I work for a homeless shelter in Bloomington, and she works for another social service organization in our community. And she told me that they had closed for the day to assess the situation over the weekend, while we at this point have decided to remain open. She also began to tell me a story about how she had been regularly using heroin for over 20 years and had been sober for over a year thanks to one of our caseworkers. One of our street outreach workers regularly went to visit her camp in the woods, her tent, and one day, after a particularly rough time and built a relationship with her over quite a time, he asked her, aren't you tired of this? And she realized she was. And from there, he helped her get into a sober living situation that led to the turning around of her life. And here she was in the midst of the coronavirus, telling me how she had turned her life around and was now giving back through the work of this social service agency, and was blessed by the gifts that our agency had given to her to help her get to that point. And of course, I teared up. I am reminded that while this is absolutely serious, this disease and this issue, and not all of us will get out of this alive. And truthfully, no one gets out of this alive. But I'm reminded that this disease is not all there is. There is hope. We have wrestled with disease before. We have struggled with loss and pain and suffering before, and we have emerged on the other side, and we live on. Even when that time comes when we don't live on, except through those we love and those who love us. This will not be forever. It's good to remember. This will not be forever. Gardens are available to us. Daffodils are available to us. Singing out our windows is available to us. Healing, recovery, commitment, compassion, and hope are all available to us. Toilet paper is available to us. We will hug again. We will hold hands again. Love will carry on like it always does. Shalom.